Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. I am Major Andrea Kostyk, the Public Affairs Officer for the Minnesota National Guard's 133rd Airlift Wing. I would like to introduce our official party participating in the press conference today. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, U.S. Senator Tina Smith, Congressman Tom Emmer, representing Minnesota's 6th District, Congressman Pete Stauber, representing Minnesota's 8th District, Congressman Brad Finstead, representing Minnesota's 1st District, Major General Sean Mankey, Minnesota National Guard's Adjutant General, and Brigadier General Dan Gabrielli, Minnesota National Guard's Assistant Adjutant General, Air, and former 133rd Airlift Wing Commander and C-130 pilot. I'd also like to recognize Ben Anderson from Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach's office, and Sydney Richter from Congresswoman Angie Craig's office. I will now describe the press conference to you. Major General Mankey will provide opening remarks. He will be followed by U.S. Senators Klobuchar and Smith, and U.S. Congressional members Emmer, Stauber, and Finstead. Once our official party has provided their remarks, we will open the press conference to questions. Each media member will have an opportunity to ask one question and one follow-on question, and then we will open to anyone with further questions. Brigadier General Gabrielli will answer any questions specific to the C-130J. Following our Q&A, media members will have an opportunity to tour our current C-130 Hercules model while an air leader discusses the new aircraft updates. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Minnesota National Guard's Adjutant General, Major General Sean Mankey.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for being here on this historic day for the Minnesota National Guard. We are excited to announce that we are one of 4 Guard units selected to receive 8 new C-130J Super Hercules aircraft as part of the Air National Guard's C-130 Recapitalization and Basing program. This is a monumental step for Minnesota and the Minnesota National Guard, and just a great day. We're really excited about it, and we're looking forward to the next steps when we finally get these aircraft here in the state. The C-130J offers many advantages, including the latest avionics, longer expected lifespan, better fuel efficiency, as well as performance and an increased cargo capability. We anticipate, as I said, receiving these aircraft over the next few years. The 133rd Airlift Wing currently operates 8 C-130H3 model aircraft, and most of them are over 25 years old. The 133rd Airlift Wing has been recognized as a federal airlift wing for over 100 years, and they've been doing the C-130 tactical airlift mission for over 50 years, transitioning to various forms of the C-130 during this 50-year cycle. One of the Minnesota National Guard's organizational priorities is partnerships, and without a doubt, the partnership we have with our elected members played a pivotal role in our selection, as well as the performance of the airmen of the 133rd. The effort to produce these new C-130Js began over 3 years ago, when we became aware that the 133rd might not be selected for the newest variant of the C-130, and the associated risk to their flying mission. The collective efforts by Governor Walz, our 2 U.S. senators, all 8 of our U.S. representatives included multiple engagements and letters of support to the Secretary of the Air Force, the Director of the Air National Guard, and to both the Senate, House Armed Services, and Appropriations Committees. We are grateful for our elected officials and all who supported the efforts to secure the C-130Js for our state. So thank you very much for those that are here today. Thank you to the entire delegation and to Governor Walz for their efforts. This is an important announcement and will modernize the 133rd Airlift Wing, ensuring our Minnesota Air Guard service members remain at the forefront of the future fight. As I said, this is a huge win for Minnesota and the Minnesota National Guard. Thank you.
Thank you, General Mankey. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce United States Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, General Mankey, for your incredible leadership, keeping us informed of every little twist and turn. For a Super Hercules plane, it was a Super Hercules effort to get this done. We were up against a number of other states and bases. All of them had different advantages, but we always knew we were going to get this done. Why? Because of the men and women standing over there. Our best argument was how they have performed over the years in flying planes, in maintaining planes, in making our country proud. There are hundreds of them right now stationed around the world doing incredible work. So that was our number one secret advantage and secret weapon, which actually isn't that secret because they're standing right over there. These are top of the line new planes. And as the Major General mentioned, this was a team effort with the delegation. We all brought different things to this, I'll call it competition. But one of the things that we brought that not every state had is that we did this as a delegation from day one. Maybe we don't agree on every issue, right, Emmer? Maybe. But we agreed big time on this, and it was not just putting our names to it. It was actually coordinating on who would be best to make this case and what we had done together and touching base and talking about it. You can only do that when you have trust and when you have actual friendship between people that work for our state. And so I want to thank my colleague, Senator Smith, Congressman Emmer, of course, who we just talked about this, I think, a week ago, Congressman Stauber, who is here. I'm going to be up in Duluth today. One of the reasons I'm going there is General Lowe, who played a major role in this, is going to be up in Duluth at the air base up there. And I thought, well, if he's going to be there, I better be there because I didn't know the decision was going to be made yet. But as it turns out, it was made before that. Congressman Finstead, thank you for your work on this. And also, of course, thank you to the Brigadier General and everyone in leadership in Minnesota. And I also want to recognize Congresswoman McCollum, who plays such a critical role because of her role as the ranking member of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense, and the work that she has done in bringing back so many things to Minnesota, and also as well the governor, who had a good understanding of this process, having been in Congress before and serving himself, and Representatives Craig, Phillips, Omar, and Fishbach for their work as well. For over a century, the airmen and women of the 133rd have safeguarded Minnesota and our nation both in wartime and in peacetime. And for the last 50 years, they've used the C-130s as part of their missions, spanning from disaster relief to medical evacuations to transportation of personnel and equipment. Altogether, crews from the 133rd have logged more than 213,000 flying hours. That is the equivalent of 27 years spent in the sky. And our state and our nation are forever indebted to you. That was one of our best arguments that we had, the experience and the readiness of our personnel. And one of the things we knew, having used those planes as well as we could for so long and fixed them, I remember meeting with the maintenance crews over the years, at some point you have to upgrade. At some point you have to have the cutting edge technology. And that's where the C-130J Super Hercules come in. They are highly adaptable multi-mission aircraft. They can conduct airland missions to get cargo and people from point A to point B. They can conduct airdrop missions, parachuting people, equipment, and supplies to where they are required. And they can be configured into medical triage centers to get care to those who need it in the field. And compared to the C-130s that we already have, they can hold more, they can go farther, they can go faster, and that they can do it with increased efficiency. We know our leaders in Washington that command the Air Force see these planes as a future. And one of the things we've learned from conflicts around the world, including in Ukraine, I think there were times when people thought, well, we wouldn't need these kinds of planes, that there'll be a new kind of cyber warfare only. And I think we've learned the opposite, and that our technological supremacy in the way that we have developed this aircraft and the way we know how to use and maintain them has made all the difference. And so if anything, that has made our argument stronger. It is no wonder that the 133rd recently won the Distinguished Metcalf Trophy from the National Guard Association for their service in the nation's outstanding wing. And we also know that the 133rd is the lead unit across the Air Force for the Arctic, no surprise, Minnesota, with Russia and China working to control and claim that area. The importance of this responsibility in the Arctic can't be understated. Our state has always answered the call. There's a reason we have that incredible statue, the Guard statue, that early Guard back in Gettysburg that took the highest rate of casualties and mortality rate of any unit in Gettysburg. It is because we have people that don't shy away from problems, don't shy away from doing their duties. They walk right into it. And ultimately, that's what made our case. That kind of personnel, that kind of courage. Of course, it is a good day for the 133rd. It's a great day for Minnesota, despite the Vikings game last night. But what it is a really good day for our country. So we all celebrate with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce United States Senator Tina Smith.
Well, thank you, Major. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar, Representative Emmer and Stauber and Finstad, Brigadier General Gabrielli, and Major General Mankey and the Minnesota National Guard. Congratulations. After years of teamwork and effort, we are announcing that the mighty 133rd Air Wing will be an important part of the new C-130J Super Hercules program and will continue to serve its air mission in Minnesota and around the country and around the world. And we are rightly proud of the Minnesota National Guard. I believe the best guard in the country. And the air mission that you all provide is essential and exceptional. So with this announcement, the United States Air Force recognizes the talent and the dedication of this unit and commits to the future of this flying mission. These new aircraft will be critical to our national security and to our capacity to respond to natural disasters and other urgent needs at home. The C-130 flying wings have provided nearly half of the Air Force's tactical airlift capacity, and they have been the backbone of our Air National Guard for a generation. For more than 50 years, the Minnesota National Guard has used C-130s to bring Americans to combat, to provide humanitarian relief around the globe, and to support domestic response across the country to floods and other natural disasters. But they are aging, and as we work to maintain our capabilities in the face of rising competition and greater demand for assistance at home, receiving the C-130J Super Hercules will sustain the mission of the 133rd for years to come. So I have been blessed to have a chance to work with Minnesota's National Guard, with the governor and our federal delegation on this project since I came to the Senate over 5 years ago. And so I want to recognize the bipartisan work of Minnesota's congressional delegation over these years to showcase the 133rd's readiness and their capability to host the C-130J Super Hercules. I especially want to recognize Senator Klobuchar, who has never lost focus on Minnesota's National Guard and the crucial need to preserve the flying mission with the C-130s, including the work that she did just in the last month or so to include an amendment in the NDAA legislation that the Senate recently passed, soon to be passed in the House, to authorize ongoing funding for the C-130 fleet. I also want to recognize Representative McCollum, the senior Democrat on the House Appropriations Defense Funding Committee, for her long leadership on this issue and her consistent advocacy for Minnesota's National Guard. And most of all, Thank you to Minnesota's 133rd and the Minnesota National Guard. You know, I first had the opportunity to work with the National Guard over 10 years ago as Chief of Staff to the Governor and then as Lieutenant Governor. And I am so grateful to you, General Mankey, and to all the men and women of the National Guard. You represent the very best of our nation's values. Your dedication to community, to service, and to each other reflects the highest ideals of service. So congratulations and thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Senator Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now have the honor to introduce to you Congressman Tom Emmer.
Thank you. It's great to be here today to celebrate this exciting announcement. We're entering a new era, as you've heard from the senators talk about this morning, and you already know that. We're entering a new era for the 133rd Airlift Wing and the Minnesota National Guard. Today wouldn't be possible without the work of Major General Sean Mankey and the partnership of our congressional delegation, Republicans and Democrats, who have advocated for years for the C-130Js. From outreach to the Air Force and Air National Guard to visits here to the 133rd, I'm proud to be part of this team that has literally worked with you to make this day happen. And the beauty of it is it's not a political issue. This is about supporting the brave men and women of the Minnesota Air National Guard. The 133rd Airlift Wing will now be equipped with the best possible aircraft for your mission. The C-130J is among the most advanced aircraft in the world, and this investment will provide the brave men and women of the 133rd with the capabilities you need to carry out your missions more safely and effectively. The 133rd Airlift Wing C-130 mission is an important piece of our national defense. You have a long and distinguished history of supporting combat missions and providing disaster and humanitarian relief here at home and abroad. With the arrival of these new C-130Js, the wing will be even better equipped to carry out this important mission. I want to thank all of you, all the men and women of the 133rd Airlift Wing, for your dedication and your service. You are the best of the best, and we are incredibly proud of the work you do. Again, this was a true team effort, years in the making, and serves as an example of what we can accomplish when we work together as Minnesotans. I would especially like to thank the members who are up here, my friend Pete Stauber. Actually, I'll jump in. I want to thank Senator Klobuchar for your leadership, and Senator Smith as well. I want to point out that our newest member, Brad Finstad, is actually a valued member of our Armed Services Committee and was very important to this process. And then, of course, we were all recognizing her in her absence, but Representative Betty McCollum, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, for her leadership in the Defense Appropriations Committee. The arrival of these new C-130Js is a sign of our nation's continued commitment to the Minnesota National Guard and the 133rd Airlift Wing. Your mission, again, is an invaluable asset to our state and our nation, and we are confident that you will continue to make Minnesota proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Emmer. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Congressman Pete Stauber.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for being here. And what a celebration here for the 133rd. You know, when we landed, we taxied. I couldn't wait to get here and celebrate with new aircraft and celebrate with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I have to tell you, there's enough, as Senator Smith said, there's enough that we can fight about in Washington, but there is no daylight between us when we talk about our National Guard and our military. I am so proud to see the men and women in uniform. And some of you know my history. My wife served 24 years at the 148th. to see you in uniform. You are the best and the brightest. And that's why it was easy to fight for you in Washington, D.C. General Menke, you and your staff, second to none. Didn't waver when we asked for letters of support. Didn't waver when we said, we need to go see so-and-so or have the letter sent. And we need all the delegation to sign on. It was a task that we all came together on to make sure that when we ask you to defend our nation or go into a disaster zone, that you have the best aircraft that we could possibly give to you. And you know, I live in Hermantown. For the pilots, when you come down 321, you come right over my house. And I love that sound. And I'm sure Rochester does as well in Camp Ripley. We have great airspace for your training. As I was coming over here on the bus, I spoke to a retiree, recently retired. And he said, you know, we are so thankful that you got this done for us. I said, you know, we're thankful for you. And he went on to tell me a story about his 10-year-old daughter. He was being deployed on the day of her birthday. And his daughter was crying. The sacrifices that we've asked you to do does not go unnoticed by this delegation. I can assure you of that. And so I humbly stand here before you and say thank you for your service. We are going to provide you with the best for a long, long time. And we knew from the start, we must not lose our aircraft. We need 2 flying units in this great state of Minnesota. And I was proud to be a small part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Stauber. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to introduce Congressman Brad Finstad.
So good morning, and thank you all for being here. As the new guy in this delegation, I find it always very difficult to be the last person to speak because what a rock star team of friends that we have here, and we should all be very honored to have everyone on this stage that gets to represent us in this country. So thank you to the delegation for warmly welcoming me to the team. Thank you for bringing me up to speed from the day I got elected on this issue. And I will tell you what, you know, I'm spoiled. I've only been there about a year, so I just feel like success just comes. We just get things done. So hopefully this is the start of a lot more great things that we can do together. But I'm here to say thank you. This could not have happened without each and every one of you standing back there. So thank you. Your service, your commitment, and your dedication to our country is the #1 selling value add that we have as we talk to our colleagues and as we talk to the Pentagon about the need to do this. I have the honor to serve on the Armed Services Committee, and you know, coming from southern Minnesota, the first question I get asked is, why the Armed Services Committee? And I tell people, the men and women that have sacrificed so much to protect me and my family, to serve our country, to serve our state, is worth fighting for, and it's worth putting some blood, sweat, and tears and some political will and capital to fight for. So this is an example of us doing that. I have to say, first and foremost, thank you, General Menke. You're a master at marketing, a master at persistence, a master at communication, and quite frankly, a master at compassionate teamwork. So thank you so much. Your leadership, your dedication, and your willingness to work with us and communicate with us every step of the way has been so crucial to this process happening. I have to, you know, a few of these points were made, but I don't think we can say this enough. Why the 133rd? The 133rd Airlift Wing is a beacon of organizational excellence. And it's seen through their receiving the Metcalf Trophy as the outstanding airlift or refueling wing in the Air National Guard. The 133rd continues to show top fill rates and is one of 3 peer wings exceeding 97% end strength, quickly restoring above 100%, a feat that very few can mimic. The 133rd also boasts an unmatched medical readiness with 97% deployable, and their recruitment and retention rates are among some of the best in the nation. Not too long ago, Major Katie Lanning became the first nurse in the Air National Guard to be awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, an example of the incredible people and the work of the 133rd Airlift Wing. While we can talk all day about the 133rd's consistent mission response to tackle some of our nation's most pressing needs, we must also recognize that the 133rd and the Minnesota Air National Guard, for all of their work and continuous support for service members and their families through programs like the Minnesota Military Appreciation Fund. And so again, thank you all for your service to our country. Thank you for your commitment to your training, your excellence in your service. And this day, again, is all about you. So thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Finstead. Senators, I understand you have a hard stop at 10:30. So what? Thank you for being here today. No, that's not different. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. Well, at this time, we will move into our Q&A. As mentioned, each media member will have an opportunity to ask one question and one follow-on question. And then we will open to anyone that has any additional questions. Please wait until I call on you, and please keep your questions to the C-130J announcement today. All right, so I would like to start with CARE 11, please. All right. All right. I said CARE 11, please. Yep.
Hey, thanks for the question. So, the alternative mission, we're not really sure what that would totally have been, and we're not going to speculate on that. But when we learned that we might be at risk, we really amplified what it is that the 133rd does. The personnel readiness, the maintenance readiness, the deployability, the medical readiness, many of these things that the delegation up here talked about, and we went on an education campaign. And this is why, when we look at the aviation industry, Minneapolis-St. Paul is a hub, and we get many soldiers, or we get many airmen from active duty that come here, many pilots, and then they can have a dual career in the Guard and in one of the airlines, as well as the mechanics. And so I don't want to speculate what the mission would have been. Obviously, it's vital. We use these aircraft for humanitarian assistance. We use these aircraft for natural disasters, and we use these aircraft for whatever our nation needs, literally around the world. And we're a highly talented group of professionals, and not only good for Minnesota, but as many of our delegation has said, really good for our nation. We have a commodity that we think we can export. There's a lot to be said about the Midwest work ethic, and I know we're biased here, but I think really there's something to that as having someone who served, in the active Army. When I knew I had people from the Midwest, especially Minnesota, I knew they were going to be good soldiers. And I think the same's echoed for the Airmen here. And we're a value proposition, I think, for the entire nation, and Minnesota benefits tremendously from it.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, sir. How about KSTP?
Right around $112 million. That's in current dollars. So it's just the C-130J-30 aircraft. Per plane, yes. We're getting 8 at this unit, yes, and there are 3 other units that are all getting 8 apiece as well in this recapitalization. No, those 8 will replace these C-130H3s, which are 95, 96 models. They were the last H3s to come out of the factory. I joined the unit in 98, and they were a couple years old then, and now they're getting older. They're maintained miraculously well. but it's time to recapitalize and be relevant, viable to the future for all our future contingencies. Yes. About 112 million, yes.
Yeah, million. I just want to add one thing. I think when you hear those numbers, you see how important it was that we won this for the state, because we were competing against 7 other airports, and it was a air bases. It was a really intense competition. The other 3 went to Hartford, Connecticut, Peoria, Illinois, and to Montana. Those were the 4 that ended up being the ones that got the most on the metrics, that had the biggest case to make. And that's why I keep emphasizing this training. And as the Major General mentioned, the fact that Minnesota is such a hub for air, that we have this airport, that we've got modern technology, that we actually have the Bulldogs up in Duluth and that base going on, that we have Cirrus that manufactures small aircraft. That leads to a synergy with maintenance people, with people who invent stuff. It's not just pilots. And so I think that really helped us. And you can see how much money was at stake. And that question I thought about where we would have ended up without them, we don't really know, because we don't know exactly what the future will hold. We just know that if we didn't keep upgrading, it would be really hard to continue this.
Thank you. Reed from the Star Tribune. Yeah.
Well, to put it in very broad terms, it's bigger, it's faster, it can carry more, it has more capability. Just not to get too into the weeds, but it's 15 feet longer. I can carry 128 people as opposed to 90 people. It can carry 92 paratroopers as opposed to the old 65. It does aeromedical evacuation missions, okay? So you've got stanchions with cots on there in contingency operations to haul out the wounded, and it'll carry 97 stanchions as opposed to the old 72. So it's given us so much more capability. The avionics allow us to operate in the modern airspace structure as it is. And this is something to point out too. This is an intra-theater airlift aircraft. You've got inter-theater that brings things long haul distances from the United States to foreign countries and contingencies. This is like your regional airline within a contingency. It's operating on sort of a hub and spoke around theater, doing all the tactical. That's why they call it a tactical airlifter. Doing the airdrop, the night vision goggle, short field landings, all those things that are so vitally important in our past 20-year conflicts over in Southwest Asia, but also in our near-peer competition, impending, hopefully never happen, conflicts coming up. This is going to be a major player when you're talking about getting into theaters that are far away and operating within those theaters. So from a pilot's perspective and a flyer perspective, yeah, it is a fun new toy, but more importantly, it's going to make us more capable, more ready, and it can go to a better unit. I've been here for 25 years, and this is the oldest federally recognized flying unit in the National Guard. It's got a rich, rich heritage. And not only that, it's not enough to be oldest, but when you have the history of excellence that this unit has, and I'm biasly objective, okay, we'll put it that way, but I know that our airmen and women, and they're all standing behind you, and they're the workhorses, they're the warriors that get the mission done with this aircraft. And the H models are only remaining in the Air National Guard and the Reserve. The active duty is recapitalized to J models. So much more than the relevance and the viability going forward, when you're talking about logistics trails, Air Mobility Command's our lead command, to be able to support a J model with the same parts they're using to support their J models, it's a logical thing. When they have to support a legacy aircraft that's in the Air Reserve component, that's a tough thing to do. So when we all can concurrently and proportionally recapitalize with the active duty, that's a win. And this is the one airframe that fell behind that a little bit. So for us to be able to carry this forward, and then as Senator Klobuchar mentioned, go into the next 4 units remaining to get those airplanes for them. But I want to sort of piggyback on something she said. This is one of 3 C-130 units in the Air National Guard that are in major airline hubs. And we all know that there's not only retention and recruiting issues, which we do very well at, and we're very strong here, but pilot pilot retention. And there's a pilot shortage in the airlines. There's a pilot shortage in the military. When you can have a viable flying unit in a major airline hub here, you have a breeding ground for pilots. You know, we're gonna assess them off of active duty. We have multiple examples of that in this room. They're gonna come get their Delta job off active duty, look for a guard unit. They're gonna naturally come to places like this. So this is an absolutely critical place to keep a flying mission, and maintenance and all the other support activities that surround a gigantic aviation community like this, much less a major metropolitan area. The old ones will, well, as we recapitalize to J models, this may go to another unit that's waiting for a J model recapitalization. It's in the process of being modernized as we speak in different stages. It will probably go to one of those states, and I don't even want to speculate beyond that, foreign military sales, whatever those would be, but it's still going to be a viable airplane. It's the newest H3s. Well, it all depends. The next thing we're going to be, it's an ongoing advocacy and persistent, consistent messaging and advocacy, which our congressional delegation has been so amazing at, and General Manke and the whole team. So there's going to be an order to where these 4 units fall. They're called MOBs, but it'll be the first of the 4, which hasn't been determined which one will recapitalize first. The first of the 4 probably won't see the airplanes till 2026. And the last of the 4 probably 2028. And then you're going to have a 2-year conversion process in there as we bring in the new aircraft and the old aircraft go offline. And then we have to train the crews. They're both called C-130s, the H and the J, but they really are very different airframes. It is a whole different qualification. So our pilots will have to go through 5 or 6 months of training, and then our load masters will have to go through another 2 months of training. The new airplane won't have a navigator or a flight engineer on it because the avionics and systems will encompass all of that the pilots can control. But it will take training of all the individual airmen, and as well as the maintenance folks and all the support units that support this aircraft. They will with some modifications. So with a congressional ad, it doesn't necessarily come with all of the support and money. And like I said, it's going to be a continuing effort for our congressional delegation with the Air National Guard Bureau, with the Air Force, to fund the modifications we will need. It's 15 feet longer, so there will be sort of vestibules added to the hangars to accommodate the nose and do all that. That's all, it'll be to be determined, all the actual construction specifics. But the ramp, the space, everything will accommodate the new aircraft.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
I just wanted to once again thank this delegation. I was just looking down the row and thinking what everyone brought. Tina with her experience as Lieutenant Governor and knowing the Guard, and Tom, number 3 in leadership over in the House, Pete, with his family, his wife, Major Commander there, previously in the Air National Guard, and Brad on the Armed Services Committee. Betty, we already mentioned. It was truly a team effort. So just as you guys have your team, we had our team, and we're really pleased with how this went. Thank you.
Okay, I have 3 outlets yet that have to ask questions. Minnesota Public Radio. Okay, thank you. WCCO?
Right. Well, I was active duty and I was Guard, and the biggest difference, I loved both the active duty and the Guard. We're all total force, but one thing I knew when I came into the Guard was the sense of ownership the Army and the Air Guard have of their equipment. They fly these planes like they own them, which they do. They're like their sports cars for life, and that's kept this thing extremely capable, extremely viable. Yes, it can perform every mission the Air Force has us doing, but like with everything, whether it's fighter aircraft, air refueling tankers, we were modernizing. We're moving in forward with future capabilities, and the range this will give us, 900 more miles, the capabilities, the speed it'll give us, about 50 more knots in the air, all those things, and the avionics and the carrying capacity, 2 more pallet positions. We'll be able to carry 8 instead of 6. It's going to make us even more capable. But these aircraft are still vitally capable, critically capable, and they will go on to serve another unit or maybe another country. They're in the middle of a modification right now that the National Guard and the reserves have for new propellers, new engines, and new avionics. And that modernization will continue because these planes will go somewhere else where they are critical and useful.
All right, thank you. And Twin Cities Bureau. Okay. Perfect.
Representative Emmer said constant pressure. And I think that that's really right. It required relentlessness, the knowledge and the capacity to really explain the strengths of this of the 133rd in terms of its readiness and training and the power of recruitment, the strengths of this place, geographic place, as a good place to locate these new planes, and then just constant working together and day in and day out, making sure that we were staying in close communication and triaging where we needed to. It was a really good team effort.
And I just want to add to that, not only was it constant pressure, but we have civilians in our state that are connected to the Air Force. And I'm just going to name one, Shellberg, a top-notch individual, but he came out to DC with us, met with the Secretary of the Air Force as a civilian. And so we have to be in lockstep. We talk about constant pressure. This didn't just happen overnight. I mean, the night of my first election, we knew that we wanted to keep both flying units. We had to, because the 148th Fighter Wing went through the BRAC base realignment and closure many years ago. And if it wasn't for the strong Minnesota contingent at the time and understanding our work ethic and our values and what that 148th could do strategically for our national security, it would have been closed. So it was continuous pressure. And again, as Senator Smith just emphasized, there is no daylight between us when it comes to the men and women in uniform. And I know we were all at meetings behind the scenes, talking to the right people, making sure our appropriators, not only Representative McCollum, but Chairman Ken Calvert from California. I specifically wanted to have breakfast with him at least once a week to make sure we talked about the opportunities that we had.
Thank you. Did I miss any outlets? Any additional questions? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance today. Let us know if you're interested in touring inside the current C-130 Hercules model. We'll have General Gabrielli to show you what will be different in the future. And thank you so much for being here today.